Welcome to the Declutter Diaries. I'm your host, Bonnie Hintonack with Bin Your Space. And with me, you'll meet Tina Wolf, a licensed therapist. We are going to explore the connection between your mental health and organizing and decluttering because it's a journey and we're on it too. Okay, I have to start. I have to tell you what happened the other day. So, Ryan and I always pray before bed.
Okay.
And he was very tired. And so instead of saying, "Dear Lord," he said, "Dear Google, I..." And we literally belly laughed for 10 straight minutes. I was crying laughing because then he's like, no, that's not right. And I'm like, "Dear Google, thank you for this day."
That so reminds me of the movie Talladega Nights. Dear baby Jesus. I don't know why that came out, but it was just like, that's exactly what it reminded me of.
I just had to tell you that. I've been waiting. It's just, it was really funny. And then we just literally were laughing. I have not laughed that hard in a long time. Like, my abs hurt.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's the best kind of laughter.
Yeah. And then his laugh made me laugh, and it was just like a whole thing.
Laughter. It's good medicine. It's good for the soul.
It really is. Mm-hmm. I love laughing.
I see all those kind of silly memes and, things that are like, oh, if you laugh, it does this and it does that and it increases this hormone in the body. And it's really true. Like, it just brings... I don't know. There's something about a smile and a 30-second belly laugh. For me, children laughing, like, I don't care where it is. It is the most calming, genuinely joyful sound I've ever heard in my life.
So what I hear you saying is you want me to send you all the baby laughing reels now.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
Done.
I will have no more stress in my life. I won't have to clean. I'll just sit and listen to baby reels. And I'll be like, okay, it doesn't matter. Nothing in life matters anymore because all the babies are laughing.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, man.
No more rage cleaning.
What a week. Nope.
What a week. All the babies. It's Tuesday. Nope. Is today Tuesday?
It's Wednesday. See? What a week.
I went to the doctor the other day and I was like, what day is it? And she's like, "You sound retired." And I was like, well, I'm not retired, but... It's just so nice not teaching, especially on rainy days.
Agreed. And while I really, really wish this rain would go away, because we're on day, I don't even know, like 4, I'm going to take a second and acknowledge the fact that we are nowhere near in as bad of a situation as the things that are going on in, like, the Carolinas.
That's true.
Yeah. Just, goodness gracious. The rain that those people went through and the devastation. Lots of cleanup. Lots of clutter. And I hate making a joke out of it, but that's where I am this morning.
I don't think that's a joke. I mean, but I didn't even think of that, honestly. Like, you think about people's homes and their space and everything, like, not being able to be lived in, and
It's no longer
a
a haven for them.
Right.
It's a place of stress and anxiety and tension. And that's not what it's meant to be.
No. That didn't even cross my mind. Literally until right now.
Yeah. And some of these people are trapped in those places that are not a safe space or a comforting space.
Wow.
So many prayers lifted for those people right now and just the heaviness of their hearts too.
Yeah. Man. My mind is just still trying to comprehend that. Like, I'm thinking about people who, had water rush into their house and, their things are not neatly set on platforms and, all it's literally just like piles of stuff. Yep. So it's like, how do you now move forward? It's like bigger than just decluttering. Like, it's now survival mode. It is, you're in fight or flight, with with your safe space. Mm-hmm. And that is hard.
Yep. Because your outlets, your peaceful places, your vehicle where you used to listen to whatever on the way to the job. Yes, absolutely. On the way to the job that you now can't get to or don't have because it's been washed away. The space that you're in is covered in mud, debris, and if you're lucky enough to not have it covered in mud and debris, it's without electricity, it's without water, it's without the comforts that you had. So moving past that has got to be very hard mentally, trying to keep yourself in a positive emotional state, going through all that devastation. Tough stuff.
That is tough. And it's not only just the house itself, it's literally the entire town.
Yes.
It reminds me to a smaller scale of Ellicott City, what happened years ago with the flooding twice in like
2 years.
Yeah. I was going to say a week, but yeah, it was a couple years. And it's just like, it's just devastating. Like you just have stuff literally everywhere. And then it almost is like that stuff then just does not matter. It's like,
yep.
Wow, that puts it into perspective. I don't need all these things. But like you just said, the mental load of that, I just can't imagine. I've never been in a situation where my home was not safe.
I just realized something odd. 2 things, actually. One of them is vicarious trauma. That's my hometown. I'm from Asheville. And as I'm seeing pictures and hearing people talk about things and make posts, I'm envisioning the place that I lived in as a child. And as we were sitting here this morning before the podcast, and my stress levels have been kind of, insurmountable right now because I have someone I care about that's in Asheville. I think I just realized that that's adding to my stress too, because that's my hometown. And it's devastated. And that's creating some unexpected issues in the back of my brain that are kind of giving me a hard time processing.
And that makes sense that you would feel something. I mean, even when we were over Friday night and you were seeing it on the news, you were like, I don't want to see anything about Asheville. Don't show me, blah, blah, blah. But you were like, I can picture where our house is, where this is. So it's almost like you are there mentally without being there physically. And you're like, that's where I grew up. That's where this happened. And my family and you.
Yeah, memories.
Memories.
And going back, we've talked about this kind of circular, how things relate to one another and space and things and places. And so thinking about the connection for me with the people that are there going through, even though, I don't have a lot of family there, a few, but just being able to connect on an emotional level with what they may be going through in a space that I'm familiar with. That's a really odd thought.
It's very specific. You're putting yourself there without being there. I feel like you're trying to, what's the word? I guess empathize.
Yes.
You're trying to empathize because you know exactly where everything is in the town and have lived there.
I think I'm subconsciously empathizing.
Tell me more.
So our brain does these hidden things, right? We react to things. We respond with emotional or visceral responses to things that we are connected to. When I think about like the ring holder that you talked about with your mom. So like things like that, when you connect a picture or an image, an emotion is attached within our brains, within our bodies, and our bodies hold emotional responses or sometimes unrecognized responses. And I think this is one of those. I think this is one of those times when my body and my emotions are responding to something that's happening, not in my environment, but in an environment that I'm connected to. So thinking about my dad's home in North Carolina, I can picture his space, and his space was always warm and welcoming for me when I went home. And now thinking about that space may be, even though my dad's passed, let's just be, he's not there. So I know that he's not, in the middle of devastation. But thinking about his home, that was a place for me of peace and joy and comfort because the way he cultivated his space, I'm like, that's a space I'll never see again.
It's almost like reliving that grief all over again. Because, like you said, he's passed, but you still picture that home. And while up until last week, that home was still maintained.
Yep. And intact.
Now doesn't even look the same.
Yeah. Or potentially.
Right.
Didn't think that's where this conversation was going to go.
I didn't either. But I'm really glad that we're talking about it, honestly, because this is important. It's real life. It's happening now. Like, I can't imagine.
I think this happens more frequently than we realize. It doesn't have to be something as devastating as a 1,000-year act of God. It can be something much smaller that still creates that back of the brain response that we need to be mindful of. How memories and triggers, either in our space or in the wake of a natural disaster, or how those things impact our ability to maintain our emotional regulation.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have no words. I mean, I'm processing this as we're talking.
So am I, believe me. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, I'm trying to now think what small things in my life would trigger something like that. But it could be anything. Honestly, you just have to be, I guess, aware, but processing through. You can't be aware if you don't talk about it. And you've mentioned you're a verbal processor. So, if you're talking about it, then you're able to process through, you're able to realize kind of like what's going on in your brain. And while we're doing a podcast about, the physical stuff in our homes, taking time to recognize that, and we've said it before, not every home is safe.
And how can you create mental and emotional safety? Or how do you even recognize that you need to create it? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think it takes somebody else almost listening to you to then kind of speak that into your life of like, hey, I think this is what's going on. But then you have to start talking. So it's like you can't necessarily recognize it within yourself.
Not always.
No.
Particularly when we're thinking about, like, now I'm thinking about the therapist-client relationship. That's also what friendships do.
Yeah.
We are a mirror for the people we care about to help them identify what's going on in their life that they may need to hone in on because, gosh, we've talked about this, Bonnie, for weeks upon weeks, that busyness, clutter, chaos, all the things that impact our emotional well-being trickle in, flood in, are dropped in on us, and some of the time we need to be quiet and settled so that we can parse out what in our lives, be it clutter on a counter, a memory, a trauma-versary, when anniversaries of deaths or trauma kind of come up. They're not in our conscious mind, but they're in our subconscious. And if we're not slowing down and we're not paying attention to what's creating chaos in our mind, then we can't parse out what we need to do to change it or fix it or process it. Did that make sense?
It did. I have a few thoughts of just like when things just seem overwhelming, you have to get quiet. I guess the thing is like you have to be aware that that's what you need.
Yep. And some of the time it takes a therapist, a friend, a podcast, or something else that you hear to trigger that recognition in your own mind that, wow, that might be where I am right now. And if we're relating that back to our space and our listeners, being in a space where they don't even recognize, going all the way back to that pre-contemplation stage where you don't recognize there's an issue, then it's something that sparks, oh, maybe that's what's going on. And that's really kind of what this podcast is all about, is sparking thought in people's minds to help them recognize and realize what in their space and what in their mental space is prohibiting them from having peace every day.
You know, this podcast has really changed my mindset. If nothing else comes of this podcast, it has made me think so differently about a lot of things. And one of those things being that your space tells the story of your stress, whether you recognize it or not.
Absolutely. You were at my house the other night. We said we were going to talk about this.
Yeah, that it looks tidy.
It does. So I did my 10-second tidy before you guys got there in the midst of my chaos. But you know me well enough that I didn't even have to say anything to you. You recognized that my space was not what my space usually looks and or feels like.
Correct.
So being someone close to me, you could identify where I was mentally, stress-wise, emotionally. But I didn't realize it until we sat on the couch with a drink in our hand and were kind of in that moment of breathing and talking where I was just looking around and seeing one of Rick's piles on the chair. We'll get back to that in a minute. I didn't realize, like, wow, I've been a hot mess for the last couple days. And yesterday I spent some time in my space, throwing my music on and standing in the middle of my living room and looking around in a 360 view saying, what do I need to do to get this in order so that preparing myself for my vacation, the rest of my week, all the things that I need to do, I can be present and okay. So that space definitely told my story on Friday.
And I could see it. Like when we sat down, I was like looking in your dining room, and like you said, there was a pile on the chair, which we can talk about. And I honestly did not see the pile on the chair until
hidden.
It was hidden in plain sight.
Mm-hmm, sure was.
Until we sat on the sofa, because when I first walked in, I was like, wow, her dining room table's clear, because from our last conversation, you were like, there's piles here, there's piles here, there's piles here, and you explained the piles, and I was like, all the piles are gone. The plants are over there, the receptacles aren't there anymore, you know, like going through all of that. But as soon as I sat down and I was like, she hid those things. An accommodation, if you will. But it was hidden in plain sight. And then that's when I started to put pieces together that you were a little stressed.
I had done that preliminary. And I think I realized after you left that night, I was laying in bed and Rick and I were talking. I was like, it's funny because I went through the whole, hey, babe, are you using this right now or can I put it away? And he's like, no, we're not going to get to, our daughter's house until we get back from vacation, most likely to do that. So it's okay. Why don't you go ahead and put that downstairs on the workbench? Or and each pile was, hey, babe, are you going to get to, putting the seeds in the tower garden this week? No, probably not going to do. Okay, can I put that away? So we're laying in bed and I'm thinking about the process that I went through. And I'm thinking about it only took me 5 minutes to get a preliminary sweep of my space to be able to start the process of mentally being able to transition into my friend time that evening and to start the ball rolling for me to know what I need to do, because I'm one of those people that when I go on vacation, everything's got to be clean, tidy, wiped down, all the things so that when I come back in, I'm not feeling anxiety, stress, or tension, or even the day before when I come back into that space. Or think about coming back into that space. So that one little thing, moving something, knowing where it is, but tucking it away for me to deal with later or putting other things away was huge for me to get to that spot where I could start the process. And that pile's still in the chair, by the way.
Oh, I can see it in my mind.
Mm-hmm. And that's because it's Rick's pile and he needs to process it. And I'm not moving it because I haven't asked permission yet.
Look at you.
29 years, I finally learned.
Yeah, he has to process through that. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Rick, like processing through things and you asking for permission, someone the other day mentioned to me how they listened to our podcast, and they're a few episodes behind, but the story of the books really resonated with them. And
I'm so glad somebody got something from that, because that was hard for me to be vulnerable and talk about.
I know it was. I know. And I just think that, sharing these stories the Declutter Diaries, if you will. It's like us learning too, but helping other people to see the same situation in their own life. And that person can go about things differently and have a different conversation than just, I gotta get rid of these books. Like, these books are in the way. So I thought that was really interesting and really neat, honestly.
I don't think we understand or will see the magnitude of the impact that this is going to have on people. I think our fun and banter and reminisce of stories and vulnerability makes a difference.
Yeah. Speaking of stories.
Oh boy. I think I know where you're going. I just want to make sure.
Well, it's in that drawer over there.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So listeners, if you're only half paying attention to what's going on right now, you need to just focus because this is hysterical.
Okay.
It was nice that somebody else did this and not me.
All right. So before vacation, it was the night before. Ryan's packing and he's like, hey, have you seen my trimmer cable? He's trying to trim his beard so he doesn't look like a mountain man when we're in Florida. And I mean, we're going to be there a week. So he wanted to pack it as well because when he went to go use it, it was dead. And he's like, have you seen my trimmer cable? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know where it is. He had checked in the closet that's in the office, which is where it was, in a bin labeled cables and chargers months ago. That has not been labeled in there for months. And when we got this piece of furniture that has some extra drawers, it holds the printer and some, files and everything, I had kind of taken some things and moved some things around. I forgot that the charger cable was in that drawer. So I did not know. I could not remember. I was like, Ryan, have you checked the travel bin? He's like, why would my charger be in the travel bin? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe, Organized Bonnie decided when Ryan travels, I don't know.
So, like Rick, Rye needed to stand in the middle of the room and go, where would Bonnie have put this?
Yes,
that was the part he missed because he should have stood.
Well, actually, no, I think he did. Well, he looked in.
And he realized that Bonnie would have put it in one of 500 places, so
exactly.
I'm better off asking.
He's like, is it downstairs in the, holding bit? Like, he's like going through all these things. Good for him to know where we hold things
right
in our home. I was dumbfounded. I had no idea where this cable charger was. And
that
he was
is
like,
hysterical.
He's like, all right, well, I guess then I just won't trim my beard for vacation and we're going to see what happens. So what ended up happening is on vacation, we were in TJ Maxx. He needed a hat and we happened to see some trimmers. So he bought one. Now we have two. Because when we came home, I was like, oh, I think I know where they are. Why are they?
Of course.
Why are they in the office supplies? Because I didn't know it was a trimmer charging cable. I just thought it's cable, it's technology, it goes in this bin.
Yep.
Which is where some of our other like technology computer things are. So, without the label in the closet and me moving them to this drawer.
So where is it now? I have to
It
ask.
is in that drawer.
Why is it in that drawer and not where is his trimmer?
It's in the bathroom.
So do you have a drawer in the bathroom? Why
Yes.
isn't it like in a little thingy in the drawer in the bathroom?
So he has multiple trimmers of sorts.
Oh.
Like nose trimmer, beard
Right.
trimmer, whatever.
Yep.
We're redoing our master bathroom. So
Okay.
The second drawer. So the top drawer is Ryan. All the trimmers and things. The cables, there are many. I could throw them in there. You know what? Maybe I will. Maybe I'm just gonna throw them in there and see what happens. But the second and third drawer are mine because I had to move everything into our guest bathroom.
Gotcha.
So we're limited.
So funny. I have to back to, Rick theory. When you were discussing this Friday night, what did Rick say?
He goes, dude,
you've been edited.
Yes, Rick theory came out full swing.
And he was right.
He was right. But edited, I feel like would be
if
more
you
like
threw it out.
Right, if I got rid of it. I just rearranged.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Hidden in plain sight. It was
No, it
hidden.
was not in plain sight. It was in a
Come
drawer.
on. Give me some credit.
Nope, it was in a drawer. Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So anyway, I had to share that because that like never happens. And of course it happened. And I was like, as soon as Ryan couldn't find it, I was like, that's going to be on the podcast. I was like, I know it. It's going to come out.
That's okay. Organic conversation. It's what we do best.
I love it.
Me too. Oh, so what else is hidden in plain sight? Let me see what I can find.
Yes, please tell me.
Nothing.
Well, we had...
She tidied before I got here.
I sure did. You better believe I did.
So I feel like bringing this conversation full circle.
Yeah.
We started out talking about recognizing triggers and emotions that are tied to things. While it may seem like we've talked about a lot of different concepts or theories, I think it's all just a big, it's the word I'm looking for, a big understanding that our brains are amazing things. And some of the time it's something that's in our subconscious that triggers an emotion, that triggers a visceral response in our bodies where we're stressed or tense. Some of the time it's a pile on a table. Some of the time it's someone reflecting back to us something that spawns an emotion. Regardless of what it is, everything we talked about comes back to recognition and taking time to allow yourself to identify, process, and realize what do you need to do to clear your mind and your space so that you can be the best you can be in that moment. Because honestly, if we are chaotic and our minds are all over the place and we're operating at a level of stress that is above our capacity, we're not good for anybody, let alone ourselves.
And your space is going to reflect that, which is what happened.
Yep. Even though I had cleaned up a little, my space still told my story that I was operating at a place that was okay, but not good.
And I could feel it.
Yeah.
When I walked in, I could feel it. The way that like we were just talking, it just, you feel it. Our bodies are definitely so fascinating.
And that brings me back to a few episodes ago when I talked about my friend
Yeah.
who came into my house, and she always said, this is such a peaceful place. I just want to curl up on your couch with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and a blanket because this is an inviting space. Recognizing that my space wasn't inviting, that's not what I want people to feel.
And do you remember how you asked me if I was okay because I was off? Mm-hmm. Maybe your space played a part in me feeling off too. Because
Maybe.
I could feel
My tension.
I could feel the tension. Because I was like, I don't know, I'm fine. Are you okay?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Are you all right?
Yeah.
Huh.
So
Your space definitely, whether you want it to or not,
whether you recognize it or not.
it tells the story of your mental health, your stress, your anxiety, what's going on. And that doesn't mean that you have to go and clean and tidy immediately, but it just is something to be aware of that, like, looking at your space will immediately tell you whether you see it or not, or just other people, how you are actually doing.
Good stuff.
Great stuff. Man, I can't wait for... I'm just loving this podcast, by the way. I'm loving our conversations, and I'm excited that in our next episode, we talk about the out of sight, out of mind, because I was thinking about that.
And that, what we just talked about, kind of leads into some of that.
Yep. So...
Love it. Stay tuned.
Yay! Can't wait for next week.
Woohoo!
We'll see you guys then.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to the Declutter Diaries. We hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this episode. Join our community, Bin Your Space, on Instagram and Facebook for more decluttering tips and inspiration. See you next week.